All right, second graders, today we're going to talk about how you can look for repetition and alliteration inside of the story. So let's get started. Readers look for repetition and alliteration to figure out what the author finds important. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is authors, they'll repeat things inside of their story a couple of times. And the reason why they do that is they're trying to convey meaning to you. They're trying to tell you that something important is going to happen. So when you read, you want to be looking for times that the author repeats stuff. Because if they repeat it, that means something important is with it. And also, authors will use something called alliteration. That's where they'll repeat the same beginning sound. So here's a couple examples. Here's an example of alliteration right here. The author's just talking, and then all of a sudden they say, the boy sat sadly all Saturday. So that sound is kind of fun to say, but when I see those, it tells me as a reader that the author is trying to tell me something important. And in this case, the author's trying to tell me how sad the character was. He sat sadly all Saturday. So when you see alliteration, make sure you pay attention because the author's trying to tell you something important, trying to convey meaning to you. When the author repeats a phrase or a word, they're trying to convey meaning to you. They're trying to tell you something important. So here the author's just writing. All of a sudden they use the word beamed. Beamed means to smile very widely. You're extremely happy. So if somebody beamed, and then the author says they beamed again, and then they beamed again, the author's conveying how happy that person was. They were happy, really happy, really happy because they beamed. So when authors repeat things, they're trying to convey meaning to you. In this case, they're telling us how happy the character was. All right, let's go ahead and take a look and see if we can find some of these examples of when a character or when an author is using alliteration and also using that repetition to help convey meaning to us. Okay, so let's take a look at this next one. All right, here we go. Here's the next one. Many of you already know this story. It's called The Three Little Pigs. Everybody's probably heard this story. That's why I chose it. All right. So we're going to find some examples of repetition and alliteration inside of that. So as a reader, make sure you're looking and listening because you can even hear them. Looking and listening for repetition and alliteration. Here we go. The Three Little Pigs. The big bad wolf said, little pig, let me in. Little pig 1 said, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down, said the big bad wolf. Later, the big bad wolf said, little pig, let me in. Little pig 2 said, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. Then I'll huff, then I'll puff, then I'll blow your house down, said the big bad wolf. If you were looking and listening, you probably noticed some different examples of repetition and alliteration. The author did that for a reason. Let's take a look. All right. So here, let's look at repetition first. You probably already saw some, but here we go. You can see here the author repeats this line, little pig, let me in. He repeats it again here. Ooh, that's telling me as a reader something important with that. And then he repeats this, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. He repeats that again here. That means something important with that sentence. And then he repeats this, I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down. He repeats it again. Why does the author repeat that? Why does he use repetition here? I think I know. The author repeats, little pig, let me in, because the author wants you to know how bad that wolf wants to get inside the pig's house. And then the pig says, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. That's the author's trying to tell you how much the pig does not want the wolf to get into his house. So that's why the author chose to use repetition here. So when you're reading, look for repetition because it's going to convey meaning to you. It's going to tell you what the author wants you to really pay attention to and get from the story. Now, if you were looking and listening, you probably saw some alliteration inside of here too. So let's take a look at the alliteration. Here's some examples of alliteration. Remember, alliteration is when they repeat that beginning sound. Sat sadly all Saturday. That's alliteration. So here's an example. Little pig, let me in. That's a very colorful way of saying it. So little pig, let me in. Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. And then he repeats, little pig, let me in. Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. So in this case, the author did this because it's kind of a fun way of saying it. So not only does the alliteration point to something important, but it also can point to something really important, but it can also just be something an author chooses to do to make it more fun to say, and make their writing more engaging. In this case, I think it was more engaging, but often it will also carry meaning too, so look for that, all right? Let's take a look. So here we have alliteration. Alliteration is when you have a repeating first sound. The boy sat sadly all Saturday. That's fun to say, but it also conveys some meaning. That's how sad he was. Repetition is when they repeat the same phrase or word. Beamed, beamed, beamed. Or little pig, let me in. This is an example of repetition. In this case, the author wants you to know how happy the character was. So when you see or hear alliteration when you're reading, when you see or hear alliteration and repetition when you're reading, you should really pay attention because the author is trying to share something important with you.